Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. Woman on murder charge attacked by gunmen in Hanover. Celine Hilton, the St. James woman charged for the August 12 shooting death of Richard Jimmy Baker in the Glendevon community, narrowly escaped death yesterday morning after coming under attack by heavily armed gunmen. The gunmen launched the attack shortly after Hilton left the Rambo police station in Hanover, where she had reported under condition of her bail. It is reported that Hilton and other persons were traveling in a motor car along the Mount Pedro Main Road in Hanover when a motorcycle with two men overtook the bike and traveled ahead. When the car came around a corner, the vehicle was confronted by the two men who opened fire at the occupants with rifles. The driver of the car stopped the vehicle and the occupants jumped out and ran into nearby bushes. When the shooting subsided, the men returned to the motorcycle and sped off. It was later discovered that Hilton suffered a bullet wound to one of her legs. A police investigator said that based on intelligence gathered at the scene, it is believed that shots may have fired from the car as spent shells from a handgun were found near the vehicle. Hilton, who is on bail in relation to the killing of Baker, has reportedly been ordered to reside outside of St. James as a condition of her bail. Man killed in Manchester fiery crash identified. A motorist who died following a crash on the Carteret Road in Mandeville yesterday morning has been identified. He is Lenford Powell, who is believed to be in his 60s. Police reports are that about 6:15 a.m., Powell was driving a Nissan Bluebird motor car when it crashed into a utility pole and burst into flames. The crash happened at the intersection of the Carteret Road and Hardcourt Drive. Firefighters were called in to extinguish the blaze. Powell's charred remains were later moved to the morgue. Businessman Beachy Stout, co-accused, further remanded. Businessman Everton Beachy Stout McDonald, who is charged for the deaths of his two wives, is to return to court on February 3rd next year, when the matter will again be mentioned. McDonald, 67, appeared remotely yesterday in the Home Circuit Court to have his legal representation in both matters settled. The court was informed that legal representation was settled in one of the cases. In the case of the July 20, 2020 death of his second wife, Tony Ann Hamilton McDonald, the businessman is being represented by attorney Earl Hamilton. Oscar Barnes is charged jointly with McDonald in that case. Barnes is being represented by Ernest Davis. No representation has been settled for McDonald in relation to May 2, 2009 murder of his first wife, Merlin Petal McDonald. Barnes was granted bail in May, but he had not been able to take up the offer because his place of abode has not been approved. At least two previous submissions have been rejected by the police. His lawyer yesterday presented another address to the investigating officer, who has been ordered by the court to complete checks by December 17. Meanwhile, the court heard that documents are outstanding in the Tony and Hamilton McDonald murder case. It was, however, informed that the Crown is ready to proceed with the Merlin McDonald matter. Beachy Stout was previously represented by attorneys Bert Samuels and Matthew Hyatt. However, they have informed the court that those arrangements were in relation to an application for bail for McDonald, which was denied by the court. The lawyers are to return disclosure material to the prosecution by tomorrow so that arrangements can be made for the documents to be handed over to McDonald's new attorney. Barnes was further remanded until December 20, while McDonald was remanded until February 3, 2022. Justice Ministry assisting children through court support program. The Ministry of Justice Victim Services Division (VSD) continues to assist Jamaica's child victim population through its court support program. The program was designed to reduce the level of trauma experienced by children as they interface with the court system. This is achieved primarily through a series of sessions held between the child and a VSD social worker or counselor. The Reverend Osborne Bailey, director of the VSD, said that the preparation process for children who are to appear in court involves a range of activities. The court preparation sessions focus on evaluating and addressing a child's fears and knowledge of the rules and processes of the court. We teach them relaxation techniques so that they can better manage their fears. We also accompany them to court as well as prepare them for all possible outcomes of trial, he explained. The methods used to achieve these outcomes include play therapy, art therapy, role play, use of model courtroom, and pretrial visits to the actual court building. The underlying premise of this program is that preparing the child on what to expect reduces the stress, unfamiliarity, and trauma of the actual process and possibly help the clarity of the child's testimony during trial. Bailey further stated that while the division takes a special care to prepare children for a court hearing, the VSD does not participate in witness coaching. Under no circumstance do we interfere with the justice process by telling or attempting to persuade children to change their testimonies or evidence. Our role is strictly to help these children to feel comfortable in a court setting so they are better able to deliver their testimonies, the director stated. Since the start of the 2021-2022 fiscal year, VSD's court support program assisted 434 children. Jamalco disputes CCA review showing US $100 million unaccounted for. Jamalco has taken issue with a Sunday Gleaner report quoting a CCA Capital Partners financial review showing that nearly US $100 million in payments by Clarendon Alumna Production Cap could not be accounted for. The payments were made over a 4-year period. US $61 million was from production and capital expenditure payments to Jamalco between 2017 and last year, while $37.5 million was from fluid oil payment to the Noble Group. In a statement Thursday evening, Jamalco disputed the financial review, claiming that multi-million-dollar loss but did not offer supporting detail. There is not a US $100 million missing from Jamalco, and we intend to take all the necessary steps to prove the claims are false and hold those responsible for the claims to account, said the company's managing director Austin Monley, while contending that the financial integrity of the company has been incorrectly called into question. Jamalco said it was only provided with the CCA report after the publication of the Sunday Gleaner article. Had CCA, or the former board of Clarendon Alumna Production Limited, provided this report to Jamalco for review, the organization would not have been able to conclusively address this issue, said a spokesperson in a statement. According to the alumna company, the review by CCA was incomplete based on fundamental misinterpretations of the information provided by Jamalco and published before all the required information had been disclosed. Jamalco said it has submitted to the new board of directors of GAP a full reconciliation of the alleged gap and has offered to subject this analysis to review by a reputable internationally recognized accounting firm should this be required. Jamalco GAG, General Alumna Jamaica and CAP have all been audited by reputable internationally recognized accounting firms for the periods 2017 to 2020 with no negative findings identified, the Jamalco spokesperson further stated. General Alumna Jamaica is the company through which the Hong Kong headquarters Noble Group owns 55% of Jamalco. The Jamaican government, under an incorporated joint venture arrangement, owns the remaining 45% stock through CAP. The now contentious review prepared by the Andrew Simpson-led CCA involved combing through 4 years of invoices, monthly statements, and transactions posted to Jamalco's U.S. bank account. The findings led the review team to recommend that an intensified surveillance be conducted to unearth what it claimed were operational and management deficiencies of the managing partner. Last Friday, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark acknowledged that the CCA review raises questions about the reconciliation of fluid supply costs to Jamalco and the distribution of these costs between CAP and Noble and promised to get answers. I will ask the new board to see to it that this matter is thoroughly reviewed as a matter of priority by an established accounting firm with a tracking record in auditing, Clark noted. Simpson, President and Chief Executive Officer of CCA Capital Partners, declined to discuss the findings, citing confidentiality agreement, but insisted that the report could not stand up to scrutiny. Up to last month, the CCA boss had been engaged by CAP as a consultant, but after nearly 2 years, the contract was not renewed. Seniors urge to get booster shots as Christmas traffic heightens.
Seniors are recommended. It is recommended that seniors get a booster shot. What percentage of them have received their first dose and have not returned for their second, and how does this factor into the ministry's plans?
I would really have to be trying to pull the numbers out of my head at this time, but I think that we had maybe about 18,000 persons over 60 that would be due the booster now. Those would be November and December. I think it is about that number. And then I think there's another 6,000 healthcare workers that would also be due at this time. In terms of for the second doses, I don't want to quote a number now, but I know that we certainly are on track for the Pfizer second doses. We don't have very much of a backlog where that is concerned. For the AstraZeneca second doses, I would suggest that we probably try to get those numbers later.
You may be able to do that, but do you have any fear that the seniors who are due the booster will not turn up?
Well, really and truly, if we look at the situation in country is that right now we are not seeing evidence of a waning of our vaccine effectiveness. 99% of the persons that have died from COVID were unvaccinated. 98% of persons that are hospitalized are unvaccinated. Okay, so we are not seeing at this time, not in our local situation, evidence of a waning of immunity. Okay, however, we have seen that there are studies that have shown that there are certain populations, especially the over 60 years, that have a higher likelihood that their immunity would wane quicker. Okay, and so in light of especially a new variant, the possibility of a surge, a fourth surge, then we would encourage persons to get a booster if they qualify at this time. However, as I said, right now the evidence is showing that the effectiveness is holding up.
Health Minister still aiming for 65% March vax target.
What's the plan in respect of this vaccine hesitancy?
So I think the program around vaccination has evolved. It has evolved from having shortages, as said earlier by Mr. Mitchell, to having abundance of supplies, to having outlet issues, to having more than enough outlets. And that is evolving into now home delivery and community activation. We are now going to be deploying more mobile units. For example, there are 6 additional units that are coming on stream shortly. We have public health nurses literally doing house to house. We have call-in sessions where persons who are immobile can call their parish public health office and schedule visits for vaccination. And of course, by engaging non-public health officials, private doctors or pharmacies or others, we're hoping that the one-on-one messaging can overcome some of the very objections that Dr. Abraham spoke to.
Any indication that this is working?
Well, you know, it's a trickle. It's incremental, I should say, meaning you're not having a rush except for extraordinary circumstances. For example, the overseas work program. If you get through to go abroad to do farm work, you need a vaccine, there's a rush to get the vaccine. So when you have those compelling reasons that are linked to economics or otherwise, you get that. Otherwise, it's really about convincing persons. And I believe the evolving situation of vaccinate for access, meaning, you know, whether it is for weddings or events, the announcement by the Prime Minister of 50 congregating but vaccination only within the public space, I think will also add to the incentivization. But we do have a lot of work to do because the anti-vax movement is real, and some of those fears are real also, and we have to continue to confront them.
Have they won the war?
You know, I think the anti-vax movement has become a lot more powerful and have been underestimated, not just by our local authorities, but by our multilateral partners, our international agencies. Over time, immunization as a concept has been universal and a critical part of our human development here in Jamaica and the world. But over time also, the anti-vax movement have been well-resourced and use alternative media. And I think one of the lessons coming out of this is going to have to be a significant pushback to show the virtues of immunization generally, and in this instance, vaccination to combat COVID, which I think is still the best option.
So in other words, they've won round one, but
we
you're
don't
on to round
accept,
two.
well, if you want to put it in that way, in some jurisdictions, I believe the anti-vax and the noise in the larger media scape has created some fears, but I do believe that for the most part, most people recognize the importance of vaccination, and we have to continue the push.
We have, as a country, administered about just over 1 million doses of vaccines. Have we given up? Have we given up on reaching the target of 65% vaccination?
Well, I think our target is 100% no in terms of vaccination, and we certainly haven't given up. Every day we are increasing the number of sites that we have and encouraging persons to get vaccinated. Last week we had 274 sites available across the country where people could get vaccinated. So we are not giving up. Our message is still there for persons to become vaccinated, and especially now that we have the new variant, persons need to ensure that their vulnerable relatives, friends are vaccinated so that they will not suffer from any severe disease if this does happen.
With the take-up rate of these vaccines getting lower and lower by the day, how likely is it that you think that we will get to that 65% or even further, the 100%?
Well, the numbers now are disappointing. We see the fall off, and so therefore, you know, it may be that we may not reach that target by March based on the present numbers that we're seeing. But we continue to try, you know, and to get the message out. But based on the present levels that we're seeing, it may be, we may have to look at a different date if we're going to put a date on this in terms of achieving that.
Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.